Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the quiet solace of their bedroom, Stephen's hands fleetingly shook as he sealed the cryptic drawers of their oak dresser, discreetly storing the glossy magazines that unveiled a clandestine fascination. As time nudged, he swiftly reverted the room to its ordinary demeanor, vanquishing any hint of his clandestine indulgence. Accomplished by day and devoted after hours, Stephen's life navigated seamlessly across divergent domains. However, during those purloined moments, he had ventured into an unexplored facet of self, grappling with an inner odyssey that yearned for expression. Jingling keys at the entryway abruptly interrupted his reverie, summoning him downstairs. Assuming his customary demeanor, Stephen Henderson, the devoted spouse of 7 years, emerged.
"Home already? Welcome,"
he greeted Emma, tenderly kissing her cheek.
"How was your work-from-home day?"
Productive? Not entirely a lie. He had completed his coding project before lunch. Emma's warm smile faltered slightly. "I'm going to shower and change. Could you start dinner?" "Already on it." Stephen headed to the kitchen, grateful for the distraction. Their evening proceeded as usual. Dinner, a show on Netflix, casual conversation about Emma's patients, and Stephen's latest programming challenges. Nothing to suggest that tomorrow would mark the end of his carefully constructed double life. The next evening, Stephen returned home to find Emma sitting at the kitchen table, her expression unreadable. On the table lay an open shoebox, his shoebox, containing a collection of lipsticks and mascara he'd accumulated over the years. His heart stopped. The hidden compartment in his office closet hadn't been so hidden after all.
"Emma, I can explain. Can you?"
Her voice was soft, not accusatory, which somehow made it worse. "Because I've been sitting here for 2 hours trying to understand why my husband has a secret makeup collection, and these." She pushed forward a stack of women's magazines, dog-eared to pages featuring feminine styling tips. Stephen struggled to find words, his carefully constructed walls crumbling. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Stephen? Because right now, I'm thinking there's a whole side of you I don't know." He sank into the chair across from her, hands clasped tightly to stop their shaking. His brown hair fell across his forehead as he lowered his gaze. "How long?" Emma asked.
"Since before I met you."
His voice was barely audible.
"I've never acted on it with anyone else, if that's what you're wondering."
Emma's professional calm, the same she used with patients, was firmly in place. "That's not what I'm asking. I want to know why you felt you needed to hide this from me. What exactly is this, Stephen?" The moment stretched between them, taut with 7 years of unspoken truth. "I've always felt different." The words came slowly at first, then in a rush. "There's a part of me that wants to experience life differently, to express myself in ways that aren't traditionally masculine." Emma listened without interruption as Stephen described feelings he'd suppressed since childhood. The fascination with his mother's makeup, the envy he felt watching women express themselves through fashion and beauty, the shame that had been drilled into him when he'd shown interest in girl things. When he finally fell silent, Emma reached across the table and took his hand. "Why didn't you tell me?"
"I was afraid of losing you."
Her fingers tightened around his. "Do you want to be someone else? Is that what this is about?" Stephen shook his head, struggling to articulate feelings he'd never shared aloud.
"Not someone else. Just a different version of me,
I've had this name in my head for years. Liana. Emma's eyes widened slightly, but she nodded. Liana, she repeated, testing the name. And what does Liana want? The question hung in the air, fraught with possibility and fear.
Just to exist,
Stephen whispered.
even if only in private.
Emma was quiet for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. Then she stood, decision apparently made. Wait here. She disappeared upstairs, leaving Stephen in agonizing suspense. When she returned, she was carrying a shopping bag he didn't recognize.
I got this for myself a month ago, but never had the courage to wear it,
she said, pulling out a pink satin dress. It might fit you. Stephen stared at the garment, uncomprehending. You're not disgusted? I'm surprised, Emma admitted. Confused, maybe, but disgusted? No. She laid the dress on the table between them. Marriage is about accepting all parts of each other, isn't it? Even the parts we're afraid to show. The bathroom light was harsh as Stephen studied his reflection. Emma stood behind him, makeup brush in hand. Hold still, she instructed, applying foundation to his freshly shaved face.
You have good skin, but we need to neutralize this shadow.
Stephen held his breath, watching as Emma worked with careful precision. She had pulled up tutorials on her tablet, occasionally pausing to reference techniques.
How do you know so much about this?
He asked as she blended eyeshadow across his lids. Emma smiled. 3 years of theater in college. I did makeup for half the productions. She stepped back, assessing her work. Now for the lips. I think this rose color will suit you. When she finally stepped away, Stephen hardly recognized the person in the mirror. His brown hair was still short, of course, but Emma had styled it differently, softening his appearance. The makeup transformed his features, highlighting cheekbones he didn't know he had, enlarging his eyes. What do you think? Emma asked.
I don't know what to say.
His voice caught.
Let's finish the look before you decide.
With Emma's help, he slipped into the pink satin dress, followed by a pair of her heels that miraculously fit his feet. She adjusted the dress, showing him how to stand, how to move. There, she said finally, turning him toward the full-length mirror on the bathroom door. Meet Liana. The transformation wasn't perfect. The dress strained slightly across his shoulders, and no amount of makeup could completely hide his masculine jawline. But it was far closer to the image in his mind than he'd ever managed on his own. How do you feel? Emma asked quietly. Like I'm finally seeing a part of myself I've only imagined. Stephen, no, Liana, turned slightly, watching the satin catch the light. Thank you. Emma squeezed her hand. Let's go downstairs. I'll pour us some wine, and you can practice walking in those heels. The evening unfolded in a way neither of them could have predicted. Emma guided Liana through the basics of feminine movement. How to sit, how to cross her legs, how to hold a wine glass. They laughed at Liana's wobbly first attempts in heels, celebrated when she successfully navigated the stairs. The key is confidence, Emma explained, demonstrating a walk across the living room. Like you belong in that body. Liana practiced, gradually growing more comfortable. Have you ever thought about teaching? You're good at this. I prefer nursing, but apparently I have untapped skills as a feminine coach. Emma refilled their glasses. So what now? Is this a one-time experiment, or? Liana paused, considering the question seriously. I don't know. I've wanted this for so long, but I never thought beyond the wanting. We have time to figure it out, Emma assured her. No rush. Later, as Stephen removed the makeup and changed back into his usual t-shirt and sweatpants, he felt a curious sense of loss. Emma found him staring at the pink dress laid across their bed. We can do this again, she said, reading his expression. If you want. You wouldn't mind? Emma wrapped her arms around him from behind. I married you for who you are, not what you wear. If Liana is part of who you are, then I want to know her too. The following weeks saw a careful evolution. Weekdays remained unchanged. Stephen went to work, wrote code, attended meetings, but weekends increasingly belonged to Liana. Emma, once she'd accepted this new reality, threw herself into it with characteristic thoroughness. She transformed their spare bedroom into a dedicated space for Liana's growing wardrobe and beauty supplies. Together, they shopped online, selecting items that would complement Liana's build and coloring. You need proper wigs, Emma declared after the third weekend, studying Liana's short brown hair critically. Your natural hair is too masculine for the look we're creating. The first wig they selected was a shoulder-length style in rich brown, similar to Stephen's natural color, but with soft waves that framed Liana's face. When Emma secured it in place and stepped back, Liana gasped at her reflection. It changes everything, she whispered, turning to see how the hair moved. Emma beamed. Fashion is transformation. Now let's talk about your wardrobe. You can't keep borrowing my clothes. They don't fit you properly. Liana's collection grew thoughtfully. Floral sundresses that disguised broader shoulders, pencil skirts that created the illusion of curves, blouses with details that drew attention away from her more masculine features. Emma insisted on proper undergarments, including shapewear that helped create a more feminine silhouette. The foundation garments are crucial, she explained, helping Liana into a corset-like piece that cinched her waist. They create the right canvas for everything else. Each weekend, Liana emerged more confidently, spending longer hours in her feminine presentation. Where once she had been clumsy in heels, she now moved with growing grace. Her makeup skills improved under Emma's tutelage, eventually reaching a point where she could create a passable feminine appearance on her own. The transformation extended beyond the physical. Liana's voice softened. Her gestures became more fluid, her mannerisms subtly different from Stephen's more reserved demeanor. She developed her own tastes and preferences, favoring certain perfumes, gravitating toward particular styles that Stephen would never have chosen. One Saturday evening, as they shared a bottle of wine in the living room, Emma in comfortable loungewear, Liana in a navy blue dress with white accents, Emma asked the question that had been building for weeks. Are you happier like this? Liana considered, swirling the red wine in her glass. I'm happier having the choice. Being Stephen isn't wrong or false, but being Liana feels complete in a different way. Do you ever think about being Liana beyond our home? The question triggered both longing and fear. Sometimes, but it's complicated. The world is complicated, Emma agreed. But that doesn't mean you should hide forever. Are you suggesting I go public with this? Emma set down her glass. I'm suggesting baby steps. Maybe we start with a drive, just around the neighborhood, after dark. See how it feels to exist as Liana outside these walls. The idea was terrifying and exhilarating. When? No time like the present. 20 minutes later, they sat in Emma's car in their garage, engine idling. Liana wore her brown wig, styled in loose waves, and a casual but feminine outfit. Dark jeans, a floral blouse, and a light cardigan. Emma had helped with her makeup, keeping it subtle but effective. "Ready?" Emma asked, hand on the garage door opener. Liana took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be." The garage door lifted, revealing the darkness of their suburban street. Emma backed out slowly, and then they were driving, the familiar neighborhood transformed by Liana's new perspective. "How do you feel?" Emma asked after they'd circled several blocks. "Scared. Exposed." Liana watched as they passed illuminated windows of neighbors' homes. But also free. That first excursion lasted only 15 minutes, but it marked a significant shift. Weekend drives became regular occurrences, gradually venturing further from home, extending into daylight hours. Emma suggested small challenges, going through a drive-thru, stopping for gas, each one expanding Liana's comfort zone. 3 months after the discovery of the shoebox, Emma proposed another step. "I've been thinking," she said over breakfast. Stephen, not Liana, sat across from her that morning in a gray t-shirt, his brown hair tousled from sleep.
"There's a small bookstore cafe about an hour from here, in Riverdale. No one we know goes there."
"And?" Stephen sipped his coffee, already anticipating her suggestion.
"And I thought it might be nice to take Liana out for lunch. Somewhere quiet, with minimal interaction required."
Stephen set down his mug.
"A real outing. In public."
"If you're ready," Emma added quickly. "No pressure." He thought about it while washing the breakfast dishes, weighing fear against possibility. By the time he dried the last plate, his decision was made.
"Let's do it. Next Saturday."
The Bookmark Cafe occupied the corner of a quiet street in Riverdale, its windows displaying carefully arranged stacks of books interspersed with potted plants. Inside, the warm aroma of coffee blended with the distinctive scent of old paper. Liana clutched Emma's hand as they approached the entrance, her heart pounding beneath the soft cashmere of her sweater dress. Her brown wig was styled in a simple ponytail, her makeup natural but carefully applied to soften her features. "We can turn around if you want," Emma murmured, sensing her tension. Liana shook her head. "No, I need to do this." The cafe was mercifully quiet when they entered, only a few tables occupied by people absorbed in books or laptops. A young woman with purple-tipped hair greeted them from behind the counter. "Welcome to Bookmark. Table for 2?" "Yes, please," Emma replied easily, still holding Liana's hand. If the server noticed anything unusual about Liana, she gave no indication, simply leading them to a corner table partially screened by a bookshelf. "Today's specials are on the board. I'll give you a few minutes to decide." She placed menus before them and departed. Liana released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. That wasn't so bad. Emma smiled encouragingly. "See? People are generally focused on their own lives." They ordered sandwiches and tea, with Emma handling most of the interaction. Liana grew more comfortable as the meal progressed, eventually relaxing enough to browse the bookshelves nearby. Running her fingers along the spines of novels, she felt a curious sense of rightness, of being present in the world as her complete self. When the server returned to check on them, Liana was able to thank her directly, her practiced, softer voice emerging naturally. Leaving the cafe, Liana paused on the sidewalk, taking in the ordinary moment, standing in public, living openly as herself, even if only for an afternoon. "Thank you," she said to Emma, squeezing her hand. "For what?" "For making this possible. for seeing me." Emma's smile was tender. "I love you. All of you." The drive home was quiet, both women absorbed in their thoughts. As they turned onto their street, Liana broke the silence. "I don't think I want to go back." Emma glanced at her. "To the cafe?" "To dividing my life. To being Stephen some days and Liana others." She hesitated, the words difficult to form even after months of self-discovery. "I think I'm ready to make a more permanent change." Emma pulled into their driveway, but didn't immediately shut off the engine. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I want to transition. Fully." The declaration hung in the air between them, thrilling and terrifying. "I've been researching it for weeks. There are doctors, therapists, legal processes. It's a long road, but it's possible." Emma reached over and took her hand. "If that's what you need to be happy, I'm with you. But let's take our time. Make sure this is right." "I've never been more certain of anything," Liana said, her voice steady despite the emotion welling within her. "I finally understand what's been missing all these years. I was born in the wrong body, Emma. And now that I've experienced living as my true self, even in these limited ways, I can't go back to pretending." Emma's eyes glistened with tears, but she nodded. "Then we'll find a way forward. Together." The journey of transition unfolded gradually over the following year. Stephen explained his decision to a carefully selected therapist, who helped navigate the complex emotional landscape and connected them with medical professionals specializing in gender transition. The first official step was hormone therapy. Stephen, now living as Liana full-time at home, began taking medications to suppress testosterone and introduce estrogen. The physical changes came slowly: softening skin, subtle redistribution of fat, diminished muscle mass. Emma stayed by her side through doctor appointments and legal consultations, helping research each step of the process. They made difficult decisions together, including how to approach their families and Liana's workplace. "I think my parents need to be first," Liana said one evening, 6 months into hormone therapy. Her brown hair had grown out enough to style in a short feminine cut, no longer requiring the wig at home. "Before I tell work colleagues." The conversation with Liana's parents was painful, but not the disaster they had feared. Her mother cried, her father asked difficult questions, but neither rejected her outright. They requested time to adjust, a reasonable response, Liana acknowledged, to news that had taken her own lifetime to understand. Emma's family proved more immediately supportive, her sister immediately offering to take Liana shopping for proper clothes, not just what Emma thinks looks good. The gentle teasing normalized what might otherwise have felt overwhelmingly significant. The workplace transition required careful planning. Liana had built her career as Stephen, earning respect in the male-dominated field of software engineering. After consulting with HR and developing a transition plan, she prepared to return to work as herself. The morning of her first day as Liana at Hamilton Software Solutions, she stood before the mirror in their bedroom, adjusting the collar of her burgundy blouse. "Too much?" she asked Emma, who was watching from the doorway. "It's perfect. Professional but still feminine. The gray pencil skirt was an inspired choice." Liana smoothed her hands over the skirt nervously. "Will they see Stephen when they look at me?" "They'll see a confident woman who happens to be brilliant at coding." Emma approached, adjusting a strand of Liana's brown hair. After months of growth and careful styling, it now framed her face in a fashionable bob. "Besides, the hormone therapy has made more difference than you realize." It was true. Liana's face had softened, her body gradually reshaping itself. Voice training had altered her speech patterns and pitch. The woman in the mirror was undeniably feminine, if perhaps taller than average and with slightly broader shoulders. "I'm ready," Liana decided, picking up her newly purchased leather purse. Emma kissed her goodbye at the door. "Call me if you need anything. I'm just a phone call away." The office reception area fell momentarily silent when Liana entered, her heels clicking against the tiled floor. The HR director met her as planned, escorting her to her familiar department where a brief but direct introduction was made to her team. As you know from the company email, Liana will be continuing in her role as senior developer. I expect the same professional courtesy and respect you've always shown. The director's tone left no room for argument. The day proceeded with awkward moments. Colleagues stumbling over pronouns, conversations that halted when she approached, curious glances when they thought she wasn't looking. But there were positive surprises, too. The team lead who complimented her coding efficiency without missing a beat, the administrative assistant who invited her to join the women's lunch group, the CEO who stopped by personally to assure her that the company valued her contributions regardless of her gender identity. By the end of that first week, the initial strangeness had begun to fade. Liana's technical expertise remained unchanged, and as colleagues adjusted to her appearance, their interactions normalized. There were exceptions. One project manager requested reassignment, citing personal reasons, but the professional fallout was minimal compared to her fears. At home, Liana and Emma established new patterns. Their relationship evolved as Liana's identity solidified. They discovered that some dynamics shifted naturally, while others remained steadfastly the same. Emma still left wet towels on the bathroom floor. Liana still worked late when deadlines loomed. "Does it feel different?" Emma asked one night as they prepared for bed. "Being with me now that you're living as a woman?" Liana considered the question while applying moisturizer to her face, a ritual Emma had taught her months ago. "Our relationship feels more authentic because I'm more authentic, but my love for you hasn't changed. If anything, it's deeper." Emma smiled. "Good answer." 1 year after beginning hormone therapy, Liana consulted with surgeons about gender confirmation procedures. These discussions were intense and deeply personal, requiring both medical evaluation and psychological assessment. "You don't have to decide everything at once," Emma reminded her after a particularly overwhelming consultation. "This is your journey, at your pace." Liana nodded, reviewing the stack of information they'd been given. "Some of these procedures feel essential to me. Others, I'm not sure." "Then focus on what feels right. The rest can wait." The surgical process was challenging, with recovery periods that tested both women's patience and strength. Emma took family leave to care for Liana after the most significant procedures, changing dressings and administering medications with professional efficiency. During one difficult recovery night, Liana woke to find Emma sitting beside the bed, watching her sleep. "Everything okay?" Liana asked groggily. Emma nodded. "Just thinking about how far we've come. Do you ever regret any of it?" "The surgeries? Sometimes, during the painful recoveries? No, the whole journey, starting from that day I found your shoebox." Liana reached for Emma's hand, wincing slightly at the movement. "Never. This path was always inside me, waiting. You just helped me find the courage to walk it." As months passed, Liana healed and continued to grow into herself. Her legal documentation gradually updated to reflect her true identity: driver's license, social security card, passport. Each change represented another step toward congruence between her inner self and outer reality. Their social circle adjusted and, in some cases, expanded. Certain friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the changes, but others demonstrated unexpected acceptance. New friendships formed, particularly with other transgender individuals Liana met through support groups. 2 years after beginning her transition, Liana received a substantial promotion at work, moving into a leadership position that recognized both her technical skills and her emerging talents in team management. They specifically mentioned your emotional intelligence as a key factor, she told Emma that evening, celebrating with a special dinner. Apparently, my ability to understand different perspectives is valuable. Emma raised her glass in a toast. To finding unexpected gifts in difficult journeys. And to the woman who walked beside me every step of the way, Liana added, clinking her glass against Emma's. Later, as they cleared the dinner dishes together, Liana paused, a soapy plate in her hands. I've been thinking about my name. Your name? Emma loaded glasses into the dishwasher. What about it? I want to make it official. Legally change it from Stephen to Liana. Emma straightened, studying her face. You're sure? Completely. Stephen was who I pretended to be. Liana is who I am. The legal name change process took several months, requiring court appearances and multiple document updates. When the final certificate arrived in the mail, Emma framed it, presenting it to Liana as a gift. For your office, she said. A reminder of how far you've come. Liana traced the official embossed seal on the document that declared her new legal identity. It's strange. This feels both momentous and like a simple correction of a long-standing error. That's because it's both, Emma pointed out. A huge step and also just an acknowledgement of what's already true. Their 5th anniversary as a couple, and 3rd since Liana's transition began, found them on a weekend getaway to a coastal town several hours from home. They walked along the beach at sunset, shoes in hand, waves lapping at their ankles. Do you remember that first drive we took around the neighborhood? Emma asked, her hair blowing in the salt breeze. When you were terrified someone might see you through the car window? Liana laughed, the sound carried away by the wind. I was convinced every passing car contained someone from work or the neighborhood association. Now look at me. She gestured down at her casual sundress, at her brown hair styled in loose waves, at her painted toenails digging into the wet sand. Now look at us, Emma corrected, squeezing her hand. They stopped walking, facing the darkening ocean. Liana turned to Emma, suddenly serious. I've been thinking about renewal. Renewal? Of vows, of promises. Liana took both of Emma's hands in hers. When we married, I wasn't fully myself. You exchanged vows with someone who was hiding their true nature, even from themselves. Emma shook her head. I exchanged vows with the person I loved. That hasn't changed. But I have changed. In profound ways. And through all of it, you've remained my constant, my compass. Liana's voice caught. I want to make new promises to you as my complete self. No hiding, no fear. Tears glistened in Emma's eyes. Are you proposing to me? Again? I suppose I am. Liana smiled, her own eyes wet. Emma Henderson, will you marry me? Again, knowing exactly who I am this time? I always knew who you were, Emma replied, touching Liana's cheek gently. Even when you didn't. But yes, I will absolutely marry you again. They sealed the promise with a kiss as the last light faded from the sky, the ocean continuing its eternal rhythm around them. In that moment, Liana felt the final pieces of her journey lock into place. Not an ending, but a continuation, with the freedom of complete authenticity. 6 months later, they held a small ceremony in their backyard with only their closest friends and supportive family members in attendance. Liana wore an elegant, cream-colored dress that complemented her figure, her brown hair arranged in an updo adorned with small white flowers. Emma chose a simpler blue dress that matched her eyes. The officiant, a friend who had supported them throughout Liana's transition, spoke of journeys and authenticity, of love that recognizes the true self beneath all exterior presentations. When it came time for their vows, Liana spoke first, her voice clear and confident in a way Stephen's had never been. Emma, when we first married, I gave you parts of myself while hiding others. Today, I stand before you wholly and completely as I am, offering all of me without reservation or fear. You have been my strength when I faltered, my courage when I was afraid, my hope when the path seemed impossible. I promise to love you with the same unwavering support, to cherish the woman who saw me before I could see myself, and to build our future with honesty and trust every day of our lives. Emma wiped tears from her eyes before beginning her own vows. Liana, our love story is unique, but at its heart, it's as simple as this. I love you. I loved you when you struggled to find yourself, and I love you now that you've discovered your truth. I promise to walk beside you through whatever changes come next, to honor your journey and mine, to remember that love isn't about who we appear to be, but who we truly are. Thank you for trusting me with your most vulnerable self. I will treasure that trust and nurture it for all our days. As they exchanged rings for the second time, Liana felt a sense of completion that had eluded her all her life. The circle of gold symbolized not just their recommitment to each other, but the full circle of her own becoming. The celebration afterward was filled with joy and acceptance. Emma's sister made a toast that brought both laughter and tears, speaking of the courage it takes to become oneself and the love that makes such courage possible. Later that night, when the guests had departed and they were alone in their home, Liana and Emma stood in their bedroom, wedding finery set aside for comfortable pajamas. Happy? Emma asked, brushing Liana's brown hair back from her face. Beyond words, Liana took Emma's hand, pressing it against her heart. When I found that shoebox, I thought my life was ending. Instead, it was just beginning. Our life, Emma corrected gently. It was our beginning. Our beginning, Liana agreed, drawing her wife close. And our continuing story.
Thanks for watching my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!